people don't understand what you go through and the daily mechanics of like, how do you do XYZ? How do you shower? How do you use the restroom? How do you take care of yourself? They just don't think about it. They don't think about what that person does and how it works. And so that's a big part of what we do when we go out and advocate.
Wow, guys, can you believe it? We're already over 20 episodes into Nick Speaks, but here's the truth. I couldn't have done it alone. The amazing team at Goodnight Podcasting Solutions has been with me every step of the way, from those early strategy sessions all the way to editing, promotion, and even helping me land guests. They've made it so all I have to do is show up, record, and focus on delivering the message. Kyle at Goodnight Podcasting Solutions tailors everything to your unique needs and is so creative to give you what you're looking for. But one thing's for sure, he gives 110% to help you create an incredible podcast. So if you've ever thought about starting your own podcast, now's the time. Hit the link in the show notes, set up a strategy session with Kyle, and get ready to take your podcast to the next level. Trust me, you won't regret it.
Hey, everybody. Welcome to this installment of the Nick Speaks podcast, the podcast dedicated to the disabled community, where we speak up, speak out, and speak loud. I'm your host, Nicholas Comstock. You guys, I have an incredible guest with me today who really has taken her mission of getting changing tables, adult changing tables, all across the state of Ohio. She has nearly 180 installed, and I am so excited to have her. A lot of disabled adults and disabled families complain about their issues, but they don't really take it to heart, and they don't really use their voice like my guest has. And my hope today for this episode is that with me and my guest having this conversation is that disabled adults and disabled families everywhere will take their complaints and use their voice for change. Please help me welcome the co-founder of Changing Spaces Ohio, Kim Kirkwood, to the program. Welcome, Kim. I'm so glad to have you.
Thank you. I'm so glad to be here talking to you.
Yeah, we've been trying to get this on the calendar forever, and we've finally, between your schedule and my schedule, have been able to make it work. So I'm so thrilled. So, Kim, before we get into the meat of things, why don't you tell the Nick Speaks audience a little bit about you, a little bit about your 12-year-old son and his diagnosis, and what kind of delves you in to this awesome mission that you started here in Ohio.
Yeah, of course. So hi, everybody. My name is Kim, and I am a mom to a 12-year-old boy. He's 12 right now, who has cerebral palsy, and he had a birth injury, and it was unexpected. And so I had prepared for like a normal parenting journey in my head. And what I got was something totally different than that. And it's challenging to be kind of on that road less traveled. And I think a lot of us who either have a disability or have a loved one with a disability feel like we're on the road less traveled because we've got some more barriers and obstacles in our lives than our typical people in our lives do. So, after getting through those initial few years of having a baby and a toddler that was medically complex and feeling like I need to get him stabilized and get into a routine and learn so much, I practically feel like I became sort of like a nurse. I know everything about him and how to take care of him and what he needs. I started focusing on our community because I realized how difficult it was to go out into the community and have nowhere to change him. And when he was a baby and a toddler, it was not a big deal because everybody kind of changes their babies and toddlers in their stroller or on the baby changing table or just kind of wherever. It's not too much of a big deal for parents to do that. But once your child is 4, 5, 6 years old, they are older than their peers that are using a typical commode, using a typical bathroom. And then once they get to the point where they are going through puberty, then it's a whole new level of inappropriate, to have your child that you love more than anything, and you need to take care of them, keep them clean, and be able to change them. And there's nowhere to change them because usually we only will find a baby changing table. So when he was about 5, I realized the baby changing table was too small already. It was too small when he was 3 and 4, but I was still doing it because I didn't want to lay him on the floor of the bathroom. Because of his disabilities, he's not able to balance very well and sit up or stand to be changed. So I really need to lay him down and get him cleaned up and get him changed. So yeah, I put him on a baby changing table when he was about 5, and I felt like it was going to collapse. So I was standing on one leg, holding up, putting pressure under the changing table with my other knee, trying to balance and change him at the same time. And I realized it was just, I started to sweat because I realized if he fell, he's falling down to this concrete floor of this public bathroom. And I never did that again. That was the last time I put him on a baby changing table. And I realized this was going to be a huge problem for us. And since then, I started to speak up little by little. And the older he got, the harder it got, and harder it continues to be. And so I realized it wasn't going to change until I told someone that it was a problem for us and tried to make some progress. So that's what I've been doing.
Yeah, I want to just back up just a little bit. You said he had a birth injury, so he was injured in the process of birth, or did that come later after he was born?
Yeah, he was injured while he was being born. He had a hypoxic birth injury. So he had like a spinal cord pressure, or not spinal cord, excuse me, pressure on his umbilical cord during his birth. And that went undetected until after he was born. But I've got, many friends and loved ones who have children that also have disabilities, that their child, had maybe an undetected heart defect, and that caused them to also not get enough blood to the brain until it was, found later. Or there's just all kinds of situations where people acquire, or children and babies acquire, either a hypoxic brain injury or a traumatic brain injury. And that leads to them having cerebral palsy and needing just extra assistance from their family.
Yeah. Yeah. Like I said at the top of this, a lot of folks with disabilities and family members that have folks with people with disabilities, we complain about our issues all the time. There's not enough, we don't get enough money in Social Security, our medical care is bad, but there's not enough people who are sick of it, or maybe they're scared to be the squeaky wheel. What was it about your situation that said, I can't wait until it gets bad enough, I got to deal with this head on? What made you do that?
Yeah, I think you're absolutely right. People are afraid to be the squeaky wheel. They're afraid to be rude or feel like they're asking for too much. And I also think people that have a disability or medical condition, they're already dealing with so much extra on top of what a typical person does, trying to just manage their medical conditions, get to the doctor, get their medications, get their right therapies. I mean, there's already so much extra you're dealing with. You may not feel like you have the time or energy to go out and advocate for change in your community. So I'm just really lucky that my son and I are really lucky that we have really supportive family. And as soon as he got kind of settled in at his elementary school, and I felt like he was really in a good groove there, I wanted to take those few hours he's at school and use those for good to make his community more accessible to him. And not only him, but along the way, I've met so many other people, other families that this benefits. So I just knew that if we didn't make change, we were facing a life of not being able to go out and use the restroom. So what that means is we either have to change in the trunk of the car or lay on the floor of the bathroom on a picnic blanket to change, where he's exposed to anyone who comes in and out of the bathroom. Also, lifting him from the floor I don't know. I haven't done that in a couple of years, and it would be very difficult to do it now that he's 12 and he's reached almost 100 pounds and he's about 5 feet tall. So that becomes not possible after your child gets so big. And
Right.
mostly it's the trunk of the van or inside the van that people are changing. And it's not okay. It's not dignified. It's not equitable compared to facilities that a typical person might use. Most of us or all of us expect when we go to the restroom, if we're away from home or out in public, that we get some privacy. We hope for it to be somewhat clean, we hope. And we can maintain our dignity. We can go use the restroom, wash our hands, and move on with our day, and it's no big deal. But families that have a child, or individuals that have incontinence because of their medical conditions or their disabilities, they have to plan out really well where they're going and plan, where am I going to change? I might not, I might plan to, if I have to go a really long time before I'm going to reach my doctor's appointment or before I'm going to reach this place I really want to go, I may just not drink for a while so that I don't have an accident and have nowhere to change. So it's just that extra layer of challenge. And I just saw it in front of us. And I knew if I didn't start attacking it now while he was little, that it wouldn't progress by the time he was even bigger, by the time he was an adult.
You are telling absolute truth, because I'm 35 years old and my family, I'm in a wheelchair too. I have CMV, which is cytomegalovirus, which I just tell people now it's a part of the cerebral palsy group of diagnoses. And my mom, who was my primary caregiver for many years, and then my 5 brothers stepped in throughout their growing up years to help me. We had to make so many decisions of not to go places because I wasn't going to be able to handle that and not be able to have a brief change. We've also had those situations where we had to go places and there was no ifs, ands, or buts about it. I remember getting changed at 6 years old, of all places, in a McDonald's booth because so I'm laying literally on one bit, and my grandma and my grandpa are sitting there blocking people's view so that I don't get exposed because I was 6 years old and my mom couldn't put me on the floor. It was very difficult. And then I remember going to an outside church function and literally hurting myself physically because my parents had to put me on a blanket on some grass so that I could get a brief change. And so this really is an issue that really needs to be front and center. And I'm happy to say that there are 29 states altogether that have changing chapters of changing spaces. And I'm so excited that you and your co-founder decided, you know what, Ohio needs a chapter. And I'm really happy about that. We need all 50 states to have a chapter of this because it would change our lives completely. To know that we can go somewhere and not have to hold it for a period of 3 or 4 hours so that we can go to the bathroom, or in my case, try to take a urinal and tilt my chair back and hope that, urine gets in the urinal, not all over me. Not to be so blunt, but this is what people with disabilities deal with. So yeah, this is really, really important. And I'm glad you decided to take your complaint and turn it into change for Ohioans everywhere, because it needs to happen.
Thank you. Yeah, I think I appreciate your bluntness because I think so many people are afraid to talk about or feel embarrassed to talk about bathroom things because it's supposed to be private, right? I had to get over that because unless people don't understand what you go through, in the daily mechanics of like, how do you do XYZ? How do you shower? How do you use the restroom? How do you take care of yourself? They just don't think about it. They don't think about what that person does and how it works. And so that's a big part of what we do when we go out and advocate. We go to our local officials and we go to our, local businesses, and we try to tell them the importance of having this piece of equipment, this universal changing table that anyone can use, a baby, a child, an adult, or an elderly person, anyone that doesn't exceed the weight limit. A lot of times the weight limit is between 350 to 500 pounds. So that is a big portion of the population can use these changing tables. And we go to try to explain that, and we have to not only explain what the equipment is, but why it's so important and why we need it. So, we have to explain that we have this large one. They are not able to use the typical restroom, and they need to be laid down to be changed. And they're larger than a baby. They outgrew it a long time ago, and they still need dignity, and they still need to be dry and clean and safe and happy and healthy. So, and we want to come to your business. So that's kind of where we start when we're talking to people in our community, is that education piece. And we have to paint that picture, and we a lot of times use, pictures to show. Now, we don't use like pictures of anybody undressed, but I've taken a lot of pictures of my son sitting on the changing table just to show, he's 12 and he still needs this. And, he's on this large changing table. This is what it looks like, because most people have never seen one before. So they basically are the length, they're 70 inches long. So they're about the length of a twin bed, if you imagine that in your head, and they're about 30 inches wide. So like imagine a yardstick. That's about the size of the top of the changing table.
Yeah, it is. Especially when it gets to an adult, an adult size. I'm 257 pounds. Sometimes that is not even big enough. I have a queen size bed actually right now, and got out of a twin hospital bed about a year or two ago, and I'm very thankful for that. So he's 12 right now.
Mm-hmm.
So do you still, as far as transferring him, do you still, when he's out in public, do you pick him up physically yourself, and how do you handle that?
Yeah, I still do. He's almost 100 pounds. It's definitely getting harder, when somebody doesn't really have control over their muscles and they can't necessarily assist you at all in moving their body. In fact, if their muscles have high tone and tend to be spastic or have spasticity, that can even make it more challenging. So I still transfer him by myself, but that won't be possible forever. As I am getting older, he's getting bigger. So that's, two things going against each other. I wish I was getting younger and stronger, but it's going the other way. So,
Yeah.
Eventually what the next solution will be for that, and the next piece of the puzzle and the advocacy work, is not only to have the universal size changing table, but to have another piece of equipment that accompanies it, which is a personal lift. And
Yes.
there are a few other countries that are actually really, their advocacy work is leading the way in this, and we are trying to follow in their footsteps. So the Changing Places campaign started in England, in the UK, and they have had huge success in implementing the construction of really inclusive family bathrooms with a universal changing table, a lift system that helps someone to lift out of their wheelchair and onto the changing table or onto the commode, and then back into their wheelchair if that person's not able to stand and pivot or transfer themselves at all.
Yeah.
And the pressure of the caregivers to lift that person, because if that person is a heavy person and your caregiver is not strong enough, then that's going to lead to somebody getting injured or falling, or somebody hurting their back or their shoulder, what have you. So that's the next piece of equipment that we really want to see coming along with the changing tables when they get installed.
Yeah, Kim, do you have those? I know we talked about it in the pre-call, and if you don't, we can just put your videos in the show notes, it's okay. But do you have those the pictures of the changing tables and the track lifts that we're talking about so folks at home can see it?
Let me just share my screen and I will show you. So this is our Changing Spaces campaign website. And, please visit our website. We have lots of really good information on here about how to begin to advocate, how to different changing tables that are adult size changing tables that are powered, height adjustable, that are safe, meet the safety standards. And what I'm going to take you here to is under our resources tab at the top down to our changing stations gallery. So that is just some pictures of some different restrooms that have installed a changing table. So here's an example of one at Nationwide Children's Hospital. It's large enough for adult to lay on. I believe this one supports either 400 or 500 pounds. And you'll see the safety side rail is up so that person can't roll off. And there is a hand control. Can you see my mouse kind of circling?
Yeah, I can see it.
That is.
Yes. Yeah.
Okay. There's a hand control here with two little red buttons for up and down, and the changing table can adjust powered. It'll go up or down to the level that is comfortable for the person to transfer onto the table and then back off. So that is one example. Here's another great example at a church in the Cleveland area. This church installed this changing table, and it is life-changing for the children and adults that go there. Here is an example from Chicago O'Hare International Airport. The table is here. This is a more narrow model because they were dealing with some space issues, so they chose this more narrow model. But as you can see above it, they have the track ceiling lift system with a sling so that if someone is not able to transfer themselves onto the commode or onto the changing table, they can use that and for a safe transfer.
Okay, now I have a real quick question for you, Kim. So I noticed in the last picture that you showed, it had a sling. So when these lifts get installed, because not all slings work for everybody, will we be able to use our own sling, or will we be required to somehow get their sling underneath us?
I believe you should be able to use your own sling, and that would be my recommendation because you don't know whether this sling is going to be the right one for you. And as you and I know, both being familiar with these lifts, as not everyone is, there are different kinds of slings, and the one that you are used to using that works for your body and works for your mobility level and how you move is the one you should use, I believe. Now, if you don't have one, you could attempt to use the one that's provided. Absolutely, safety's first. And if you feel like that one is not fitting you well or not fitting your loved one well, I wouldn't necessarily chance it. So when I have been recommending to those few places already that have installed these, that they put a sign on the wall that says, please use your own sling or bring your own sling, because we know that is going to fit you well and you know how to use that one.
Right. Yeah. This is phenomenal. I love all this.
This one is Kansas City Airport. This is a great changing table. And I also love that the toilet is not all the way in the corner. Right. This does not have to do with changing tables, but I have to point out this cool feature because it has these grab bars that fold down, and they can fold up to the wall or they can fold down, so that if you need to approach the commode from one side or another because you're stronger on one side or because your caregiver's stronger on one side and that's the way you're used to sliding over onto the commode, then you can use whichever grab rail you need or both. So it really gives more flexibility. I'm in the Central Ohio area. This is a picture of one of the changing tables that was installed at Nationwide Arena in Columbus. So because they did this, they installed two because they're such a big building so that people wouldn't have to go so far to reach the one. So they installed two on kind of opposite floors, opposite ends of the arena. And because they installed this, we were able to go see Trans-Siberian Orchestra last winter, and my son was able to enjoy it, and we used this table and it was great. So it gives us more life experiences to be able to have these and be able to stay longer. If this changing table weren't there, I probably wouldn't have taken him to the show, because if I had, I would have had to, at the break, take him to this restroom, lay him on this concrete floor and change him, or to go all the way out walking, leaving the arena, go all the way into the parking garage, find our car, open the trunk and change him there, and then walk all the way back. And I probably wouldn't have done that. So a lot of people do the mental math and they say, well, it's this much money to go to this show. It lasts for 3 hours. It's going to take me an hour to drive there and an hour to drive home. I'm going to need to use the restroom at some point during that time frame. And if there is no restroom option that has a adult size changing surface, they probably will decide, I don't want to find myself in that situation. I'm just not going to put myself in that situation. I'm not going to go. And then what we end up having is people that just stay home, don't enjoy life, don't go out and do the things they want to do, and they become isolated. And not only that, their community misses out on their presence in the community, misses out on what they have to offer. And that's a shame. That shouldn't happen.
I was going to ask you, Kim, and you're absolutely right. I was going to ask you, what has the emotional toll been like for you as a parent to look at your child before you had all these changing tables installed and say, he's really going to have to miss out on this. We're going to have to miss out on this as a family. What did that do to you emotionally?
Yeah, the bigger problem for me was not necessarily not having the changing tables there already, but the harder hit is when you go and you explain the need for your child, not only your child, but other people in the community. And you do that upfront educating and you say, I know that you may have an ADA compliant restroom. However, it still doesn't meet the needs of people who need to have a brief change throughout the day. And would you consider upgrading and putting in this piece of equipment? And then even after that initial education and request, they're still not open to the idea. And that is part of advocacy work, is hearing no and getting turned down. And that's the hardest thing in the beginning, I think, is to hear that no and feel that, this need of our family and my son and other people with disabilities isn't enough for a business or a community center or what have you to make the effort to include them. And what you have to do is you have to go out there, ask the question, ask for what you need, and realize they may say no. They may say no right now, but that doesn't mean no forever. It may mean in a year or two when they come around to doing a renovation, they will do it then. And that may mean this person that you've spoken to isn't the right person. And you need to kind of keep asking maybe other people that work there, or go up the ladder a little bit and find the ADA supervisor, the person that's in charge of inclusion, and speak to them. And they may understand a little bit better. So I think that's part of the toll, is just that fight, and that fight for inclusion, and sometimes hearing no. That's hard. But then you get people that say, yes, we'll do it. This is wrong. We want to be inclusive, and we will do this, and let's work together, understand this, help us pick the right changing table. And those wins are amazing. And we've had some amazing wins in Ohio of organizations getting on board with this, including the Ohio Department of Transportation. They have been phenomenal to work with. We brought this problem to them of the not having any highway rest stops that we could stop and change our loved ones. And the whole family could stop at the highway rest stop, get a snack, get a bottle of water at the vending machine, use the bathroom. But we'd have to use, a picnic blanket in the grass or the trunk of the vehicle to change our loved one. And it's not fair. So they heard that, and the timing was perfect. They were getting ready to, demolish and rebuild a lot of old Ohio highway rest stops. And they integrated it into the new architectural plans. And the first ones have opened now. The first few have already opened. And we've been able to see the new highway rest stops with the changing tables, the adult size changing tables inside, and they're great. So now people can travel throughout the state. They can go visit, take a road trip to a park that's 2 hours away that you've always wanted to go to, but you've never wanted to chance it, that you wouldn't have a place to change. go to, the theme park or the zoo that you want to go visit that's a little further away, or go visit some relatives you haven't seen for a while and have those rest stops to stop at. So it opens up the community and it opens up life, to
Yeah, I want to go back to something really quick, and then I have a question for you regarding Governor DeWine leadership in this issue, because, a lot of people have severe disagreements with Governor DeWine, but I will say he's been one of the best governors that I've been under as it pertains to people with disabilities and our needs. But before I delve into more of that, I want to go back to the Hoyer lift thing, because as we saw at one of the airports, there is a lift there, and I need to make it clear, we really need the lifts to get installed like yesterday, because it is very important, because Kim's son is 12, I'm 35 and nearly 260 pounds. And so, although we have nearly 180 changing tables, and we're excited about that, I'm excited about that, we need to get these lifts installed ASAP. So, Nationwide Arena, get your lift installed. I love the fact that the church in Ohio has done that. That's a big step, because if anywhere where a disabled person should be accepted, it is in a community of faith. So that really, as a Christian myself, that really thrills my heart to see that a church has noticed the need to put an adult changing table in their facilities. Now, to my question as far as Governor DeWine, because as you know, our country has been in a huge political divide in these last 10 years or so. How does it make you feel to know that your state leaders are listening to you, and it has nothing to do with, well, I'm a Republican, I'm a Democrat? The fact that he has seen a need and realized that this needs to happen, and really hasn't been a barrier for you.
Yeah, it's been really amazing to have so much support, not only from Governor DeWine himself, but many people and state agencies and offices across Ohio. We have felt very supported. So Governor DeWine's office made the connection for us with the Ohio Department of Transportation. And that is how that rolled out, that we were able to speak with them, have a meeting, and now the changing tables are going to be in the rest stops. And not only that, but the Ohio Department of Developmental Disabilities has been jumped on board and been like our teammates, our cheerleaders, our advocates with us for this change. And all of our county boards of developmental disabilities have also jumped on board and joined this cause and taken on the challenge to work in their specific county. And if everybody divides and conquers in their own area, we'll have this state covered in universal changing tables, and is already and will continue to be more accessible every day. But yes, we are very thankful for all the support we've gotten from all the different offices, state agencies, and including Governor DeWine's office.
Yeah. And I'll just say to those people who say, my state leaders won't listen to me because they're not on my party ticket. Put your politics aside, state leaders and people who feel that way alike, and realize that we're all human at the end of the day. We all have the same rights to access everything as people without disabilities do. So we really need to put politics aside. I understand, as well as Kim does, that we do need to be fiscally responsible, but we need to start putting more budget-friendly items in the budget for the disabled community. And this is one of those things that should be automatically put in every state budget, no questions asked. And if other programs have to be cut, or if we have to trim programs, then that may need to happen. I don't want to speak for you. I'm just speaking for myself. I don't know how you feel about that, but I just feel like this needs to be done no matter what the cost, because this is very important. And so, yeah, I wanted to put that out there.
We were really lucky that Ohio received some grant funding, some federal grant funding, and that elected representatives, when they were putting together the Ohio budget for the year 2024, they allowed our county boards of developmental disabilities to apply for that grant funding. And in order to make our communities more accessible and to do projects that would benefit people with disabilities. And one of those things that they could do with that grant money was install universal changing tables. So we had a huge win because 49 Ohio counties out of the 88 counties applied for grant funding to use in their community to install universal changing tables. And some of them also used it to install the ceiling lifts. And all added up, all those grant funds totaled to $4.4 million. So we had a $4.4 million investment in restroom equity, restroom accessibility across the state. And that was amazing. And that's the biggest investment that any state has made. The next after us is Tennessee, that their legislature authorized $1 million grant across their state. So It made a huge surge forward for us and opened up many lives. Now, of course, we are super lucky that we have nearly 180 universal changing tables already installed across our state, but that number still needs to continue to grow. Every library, every community center, every large conference center, every arena, so many places still need to install these. And if it's not there, we really can't go there. Or if we do, we can't stay for very long. So we've got some work to do ahead of us. And I just want to ask anyone who's listening, if they care about this issue, please speak up. And even if you think of in your mind of one place you would like to go and take yourself or take your loved one that has a disability, or your friend or your neighbor, that you want them to be able to go there because they're impacted by this need. Think of that one place and go there and ask them if they would consider installing a universal changing table and installing a lift, because of how important it is. And it'll let more people come to their building than could before.
Yeah. And there's a couple more things I want to address before we wrap up here today. And I so appreciate your time, Tim. I really do. And we'll have you back on when they start really installing the lifts and have new pictures and all that type of stuff. But what I want to ask you what are some places that you can think of off the top of your head that don't have them right now that really need them right away?
Yeah, I would say the place in general that we've had the hardest time has been shopping malls. So we have really focused our advocacy work on large buildings, not little tiny stores that have a little tiny bathroom where an adult size changing table wouldn't fit anyway. We have gone to big places that lots of people go and stay for a long time. Zoos, community centers, airports, malls, big box stores, those types of buildings. At churches, because they're larger, they typically have larger bathrooms. We want to ideally see these go into a family bathroom so that, if it's a mom like myself and with my son who's 12, we don't have to choose between the men's or the women's. We can go into the family bathroom together.
Right.
Or if it's, an elderly married couple and one of them has just had surgery or is having some medical problems and the other wants to go in and help them, they don't have to choose between the men's and the women's, and somebody feels uncomfortable. So you can go into the family bathroom and everybody feels comfortable and somebody can assist the other. And actually, we're kind of transitioning away from family bathroom to assisted care bathroom, because it's just a matter of one person assisting the other who needs help. So, and now that I've gone down that whole spiral, I can't remember what your question was, Nick.
You know what? I can't remember what it is either. So, because we did talk about this, and you might need to share your screen again. That's the whole thing. It was because we're talking about churches and stuff, but summer's coming up, and all the fairs and the festivals are coming up that are outside. So I don't know if you have these slides with you, but in your pre-call, we talked about the mobile changing stations.
Yes. I would be happy to show you that. Quickly, I'm going to show you the picture of the church that you mentioned.
Yes.
This is the Holy Redeemer Catholic Church in New Bremen, Ohio, and they've installed a fantastic powered height adjustable universal changing table. It has a safety side rail that's flipped up right now. Those will unlock and flip down so that when you're getting on and off of the table, it's not in the way. And then they have the ceiling track lift. As you can see, that's the white piece of equipment. It has a tether and it has they're called spreader bars. And then that is the piece that you hook the sling to. I'm just telling anyone else who's listening or watching that doesn't know. So this is amazing. This is probably the best accessible family bathroom anywhere in the state of Ohio. I would venture to say anywhere in the United States. So congratulations to the Holy Redeemer Church. Let me take you over to another project that our Ohio County boards have been working on with the grant funding that came down in 2024. And that is to develop mobile and portable solutions for restrooms for outdoor festivals, outdoor fairs, any kind of outdoor event, a marathon, things that you would typically see a bank of porta potties or portable toilets. These can be brought to those events if there isn't an indoor family restroom building that an adult size changing table could be put in. So we've got lots of all of our county boards listed here that have invested in purchasing a universal changing table that they can either bring to the event for that event to borrow with signage, or we've had some, for example, Belmont, Harrison, and Noble County boards of DD have pooled their funds together in order to be able to provide the Momentum Refresh vehicle for different community events, outdoor events, which is basically an amazing, clean, beautiful, wonderful family restroom on wheels. And it can be brought to, county fairs, First Friday downtown events, things like that, community barbecue events. And it has a wheelchair lift inside. It has a commode height adjustable sink, and it has the adult size changing table, as you can see behind the man in the blue shirt, and it has a ceiling track lift, and it comes with an attendant. So that person goes outside, closes the door, makes sure the person gets in and out, operates the wheelchair lift, gets them in safely, closes the door. And there's a button inside of this truck that you can push if you need help, and that person can come and assist. So it's just an amazing solution. We've had several other county boards invest in a mobile changing unit, which is a trailer that can be pulled behind a truck. It can be pulled and dropped at the event and left there and then come back to be picked up later. This is what the inside looks like. At the very end of the far wall, you see the changing table. It's in the folded up position, but it can be pulled down, folded down. This one has the ceiling track lift. You can see it up here. These white rails are part of that. It's got a sink and the commode with the pull down grab bars. And it also has heat, AC, lights, windows. So it's nice and comfortable in there. And it's just such a nice, large family bathroom. Even if it's a single parent with several children with them, they can all go in together. And nobody's going into the wrong gender restroom, and they can take care of what they need to, get cleaned up, and be on their way enjoying the festivities. Other county boards have just invested in a portable changing table that is powered, and then they are lending for a small fee or for free that they will bring to community events. And people have these different county boards have come up with different solutions, modifying existing trailers to be accessible restroom trailers with a changing table inside. I mean, they've gotten really creative and decided that this barrier will no longer be a barrier in their county, and that they're going to provide, a solution. And it's been amazing. The other thing I want to show you is the universal changing table map.
Yes.
This is another project that we have been working on for the last couple years. And to get to it, it is www.uctmap.com. That stands for Universal Changing Table Map, uctmap.com. And let me just share what that looks like with you all. This is a free resource, and it is funded by the nonprofit organization that we started, Inspired Access Foundation. So if you feel like this work is important, please go to Inspired Access Foundation and give us a small donation. That would be wonderful. But this is what the map looks like. And I'm just going to zoom in on Ohio because that's where we are. We have every universal changing table that we are aware of pinned. And I'm going to zoom in on Columbus, and the pins show kind of different building types. So this little baseball person is a park. That's not a great example. But here's a rest stop in Marysville, Ohio. That's one that has opened. Keep track of these. And what you can do is you can look at the pictures. This one has 3 pictures. You can scroll through. It'll show you the exact location in the building. It will tell what the changing table type is, because some of the ones on here are not height adjustable. Unfortunately, we recommend the height adjustable because they're more accessible to everyone. But we still want to list those that are a fixed height changing table, because even though not as many people can use those, it still may benefit someone. So we still have those on the map. And then if you want to get directions to that building, just click get directions and your phone will map you to go there. And off to the side, you can see all the different categories off to the left side here of different buildings that we have these grouped in. So if you just want to see, how many museums have these, you can click on this and just scroll through all the museums across the US that have installed universal changing tables. And it's quite a lot. And this can also be a tool, not only to plan out your day or plan out your next, road trip, but it can be an advocacy tool. So if you live in an area that doesn't have very many changing tables, let's see, I'm going to pick on let's say South Dakota, just because I scrolled over there. There are changing tables at the Sioux Falls Airport, but other than that, we don't have any. So this can be a really great advocacy tool. If somebody in South Dakota, if he's feeling like they want to go advocate, they can show this map to, businesses, their elected officials, and say, look, we don't have any. Let's catch up. Let's do what some of these other states are doing and create a grant program, and let's spread the word to our other organizations in our state that this is a need. And so you can use this map in that way as well. If you see in Ohio, and there's one in Texas also, the green pins are our mobile units. I've pinned them on the place where they live most of the time, but that doesn't mean that they are necessarily set up there all the time. They're there to be deployed into the community for temporary events and for festivals and things like that.
Yeah, that's awesome, Kim. I love that. If somebody's out there watching right now or listening, and if you're listening to this podcast on Apple or Spotify, we've showed you a lot of stuff today. So I encourage you to go to my YouTube channel, type in the Nick Speaks podcast, and watch today's episode, and also subscribe. But if somebody's out there watching or listening, Kim, and they say, as far as I know, we don't have a changing spaces chapter in our state, what can they do to start a chapter like you and your co-founder did?
Yeah. So I'm going to share my screen one last time. First of all, I would say go to Facebook or Instagram and type in Changing Spaces campaign, or type in Changing Spaces and then the name of their state. For example, we're Changing Spaces, Ohio, and start there and see if there is already a Facebook group or Facebook page or an Instagram page for that state. And if there is, then join in and contact those leaders of that state and see how you can help and start advocating. On our Facebook page here, under the resources tab, under the contact tab, we have a start a new chapter link. So if you click the start a new chapter link, it will take you to all the information that we need in order to start that process. And that will go to one of our national leaders, and we can go from there. If you just want to join in your state chapter and start advocating yourself, if you go to the resources tab and go down to advocacy toolkit, this will take you to some pre-made flyers that you can download and print or email to places in your area. and take with you, or send in an email and say, hey, if you'll check out this flyer, I really need this in your building. Think about it. So you can get some pre-made resources there. You don't have to reinvent the wheel. And we also have a new advocate training course. If you want to take a look, it's about 20 minutes long. If you're ready, geared up, I'm ready to go out and make change in my community. I'm ready to start advocating, but I don't really know what to say and I don't know where to begin. Watch this new advocate training course and then you'll be ready.
Yeah, that's all. This is incredible. Guys, like we've said throughout this needs to be all across the country. We have 29 states so far that are involved. We need all 50 to get involved. We are in 2025. All 50 states should have had this, in my opinion, probably 10 years ago. Probably a little bit longer than that, but it takes a while for technology to catch up and everything else like that. So probably about 10 years ago. Now is the time to have all 50 states having universal changing tables and track lists, and it needs to happen now. So send this to your state representatives, send this to your Congress, send this to your governor and tell them, if we don't have any of this, we need to. Let's get on track and do it. Kim, thank you so much for coming on Nick Speaks and sharing your heart and sharing your story. We're going to put all of her information in the show notes. We're going to put everything. We're going to put the changing table map, everything. But why don't you go ahead and tell people, if they just want to contact you and share their story and get to know you a little bit better, how can they do that?
Yeah. People can email myself and my co-leader, Jennifer, at changingspaces@gmail.com, or you can check us out on our website, changingspacescampaign.com/Ohio. /Ohio. And we are on Facebook, Changing Spaces Ohio, and Instagram, Changing Spaces Ohio. And we'd love to hear from all of you. We'd love to hear your stories, see your pictures posted. And I want to say one last thing. We could not have accomplished all of this without my teammate, Jennifer, and her son, Matthew. They are so amazing, strong advocates. And I believe what you can accomplish as a team is so much greater than what you can accomplish all on your own. And the minute we formed a team and we teamed up, we were ready to conquer the world and make it more accessible for everyone. So I just want to shout out to Jennifer and Matthew, who weren't able to be here today, that their advocacy work really laid the foundation for all of our success here in Ohio.
Absolutely. And I hope this episode encourages everybody to take their complaint, and instead of complaining about it and going on a rant about it and having zero change after that, I know the ranting may make you feel better, but it's not going to make you, it makes you feel better short term.
But the problem's still there at the end of the day.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. So take your rant and get a grant. That rhymes. Take your rant and get a grant for
that.
change, if that's what it takes. And the reason people with disabilities have come far in this country, but the reason people with disabilities don't get as far as they want today is because they just complain and leave it there. They're afraid to make change. And our mantra here at Nick Speaks is speak up, speak out, and speak loud. And don't be afraid to do it. Tim, thank you so much for joining us. This has been Tim from Changing Spaces Ohio, Tim Kirkwood, and Nicholas Comstock of the Nick Speaks podcast. Thank you so much for joining us today. Please stay tuned for more episodes and subscribe on Apple, Spotify, and YouTube. You also know how to get a hold of me. Feel free to do that anytime. This is the Nick Speaks podcast, the podcast dedicated to the disabled community, where we speak up, speak out, and speak loud. We will see you with a new episode next week. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.